I've been expecting you.
Wait, you're all missing.
It is always hungry. We must feed it.
Who are you? This is my domain.
Doctor!
What the hell is this?
The question: what is the episode The Story in the Engine? The answer: The Story in the Engine is a story about the Doctor and Belinda arriving in Lobos. Lobos. Oh, I had it in my head before we even hit record. Um, in Nigeria, and while there, the Doctor mentions a haircut. All right, he wants to a barbershop, and this is sort of where the episode gets a bit weird. But anyway, on his way there, the Doctor finds out that his friend, the owner of the barbershop, is one of other people who've gone missing, and it turns out the barber is holding them hostage to tell stories. Okay. Next question. What? Okay. So hear me out. Hear me out. This episode might be, in my mind, a very missed opportunity. It's a bit inconsistent because so far Russell has ventured into the concept of mythology and gods and whatnot, and then we find out that a lot of them don't really, well, they exist, but they don't really do anything. Like, so it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. In one line where you have beings like Sutek and the Maestro and the Trickster and the Toy Maker and, well, I don't think the Trickster's not here yet. And Lux, I guess, Mr. Ringading. We have these ideas of gods, but then we also mention that Dionysus, Anansi, that they exist. Like, so what is going on here? Um, this story is, if you hear behind the scenes, it's about stories and community and immigrants. I'm like, okay, okay, and I, part of me doesn't quite get this Doctor's argument here. Like, hey, first time in this black body, and I don't quite always feel like I belong. I'm like, okay, all right, you should probably work on that. Seems like a you problem there. So he goes to a barbershop. I'm like, okay, as a black man who gets his hair cut at a barbershop, I get it. I don't overshare. I don't like talking to people I don't know. Uh, I actually do enjoy my barber. And I have the benefit of having another person there who's done my hair for a very long time, since I was like 3. So I'm comfortable. I just don't want to talk. I just don't. I don't. I'm not uncomfortable. I just don't. I like to keep to myself. Glance at questions, but whatever. Still enjoy my barbers though. Um, we do sort of give the whole barbershop scenario to the black community. Like, hey, this is their thing. I'm like, to be fair, talking at a barbershop is kind of universal to places that have a barbershop. Same with the salon. It's not exclusive to black people. Um, but I get it in its historical context, sure. And as it's discussed in behind the scenes, yeah, I get it. I'm not going to argue the validity of that because there's a good deal of truth to it. This story is very set on not creating an antagonist, which is weird. Which is weird because the barber, as he's called, is actually this person who wrote down all the stories of the gods, and there's an emphasis to explain sort of how the gods came to be. Hey, someone told stories about them, and that's how they got their power. And this barber was the person who actually told all the stories. And he wrote them down. He created barbershops. He created the Catholic Church confessionals. He went there and he heard the stories and he wrote them down. And that's where the gods get their power from stories. I'm like, that is really cool. And then he's like, but no one gave me credit. I even created a network for it. Basically, not the Web of Time, but something like it, where they could all be told, like, okay. And you didn't get credit for it, so you decided to blow it all up. Is this sort of like another sort of metaphor, like all the uncredited people of color who were, not credited for the work they did? I don't see how. Thematically, this doesn't play a role. This is just words. You want to play this up somewhere else, like the Doctor mentions a bunch of the other gods he met. This guy comes like, I am Dionysus, I am Loki, I am Anansi. And the doctor's like, no, I've met all of them. You aren't them. He's like, yeah, I'm the father of them because I told this. So he's like, oh, okay. Okay. There's a lot of really cool ideas here. I kind of felt this should have been longer. I think I'm more in love with the idea of it, of the idea of the stories. It reminds me of It Takes You Away. The idea, because you know the 13th Doctor and the frog thing and the telling of the stories. How do you? I don't know. I think I'm in love with the concept of this idea more than the actual story itself, and that sort of hurts me. But then I have other issues. So some people pointed out that this is the first time the Doctor has mentioned that this is uh this isn't his first black body, and the fact that this is technically, as far as we know, his second time as a person of color, as a black person. The first one being Joe Martin, who shows up in this episode. Now, what's weird is that the Doctor recognizes one of the daughters of a Nazi. So it turns out his battle with a Nazi was in the fugitive Doctor, played by Joe Martin, who shows up in this episode. I'm like, how do you remember that? In interviews, Russell's like, well, in an episode where all the characters are primarily black, and in Africa celebrating those people, we thought this was time to bring in the fugitive Doctor back to show that mythology is still here. And I'm like, okay, but this episode implies that Shooty, like the 15th Doctor, remembers it. Like, in his mind, he knows I met her as the fugitive Doctor. He mentions that adventure as a Nazi. Now, you could argue that in the Doctor's mind, he sort of melds it all together until he really has to focus on, where he was at the time, which I think is fair. I think is fair. I'm like, oh, I think that time I was all recorders and and beetle haircut. Oh no, that time I was all scarves and jelly babies. That time I was all, umbrellas and question marks. Just the whole thing. And another time I was forgetting every other episode, and I could see that. But the problem is that stuff. How much does the Doctor remember? And this is something that I always knew was going to happen, and why I felt the Thomas Shadow arc sort of was going to be a problem, because Doctor Who's greatest strength is that it's all about revival. New things come in, new showrunners, new actors to play the Doctor, and to set up a new era. The problem is, though, at no point is any current showrunner obligated to honor anything that happened in the previous era. If you're lucky, you'll have your Moffats who will go out of their way to explain, okay, this is why they don't remember the Daleks' assignment, because it was a crack in the universe and they all went away. There you go. Other times you'll get something like this, which is like, hey, let's put Joe Martin in here and have the Doctor all of a sudden remember an adventure that he more likely wouldn't remember because Division would have erased his memories of it. I've seen some people on Twitter, X, try to explain this off. I'm like, okay, to me it still doesn't work. Um, I'm glad Joe Martin's here. I still haven't listened to her audio. I'm not interested in it. There are Daleks in it, and I thought, no, don't put Daleks in this. There should be no Daleks or Cybermen in the Joe Martin Fugitive Era Doctor. Shouldn't. Um, this episode kept my attention. I was like, this is such an interesting idea, but I'm just not liking how it's handled, and the fact that the barber, the storyteller, here is upset he's not getting credit, and sort of is willing to destroy the stories of the gods, to destroy humanity. And the Doctor's like, if you destroy them, you destroy humanity, is because of the importance of stories. So our mythology comes not necessarily from religion, but from the stories we tell. It's a history, an oral history. It's a community that is created by us telling stories. So he's right in that aspect. I felt the same issue happened with the Devil's Cord. Again, Russell oversees a lot of really great ideas, but he doesn't explore them in any sort of real meaningful way. He's sort of missing out on everything. And I think that sort of hurts it. But again, when we have all these other gods to then talk about other gods as if they don't matter, to me is kind of hilarious. Which has to imply that the toy maker, really, Sutek has done things. Sutek has accomplished more than any of the other gods have done. Like, he literally brought death, unhinged death to the universe, which basically was Flux, but whatever. So I'm trying to understand why I should care. Also, I think it would have been much more interesting. Hear me out. Hear me out. If the Doctor uh had helped out Omo in a different incarnation, and he just came back like, hey, like he helped him in one incarnation, then came back in this incarnation looking for a haircut. He's like, all right, man, come on in. It's weird because I'm kind of tired of looking at this. I'm kind of tired of looking at this because this episode is implying a much bigger history than I don't think we've gotten a bigger implied history than this than say Victory of the Daleks, Time of the Doctor, so the Moffat era basically, where we have a character who knows the Doctor so intimately. In this case, so much that he's kind of all right, or at least in a position to betray them. I think it would have been more interesting had we heard more stories from the people in the barbershop, sort of telling the importance of stories, or even like they say like, "Hey, this is a story that meant something to me." Instead, we have people who like they have stories of the community in the barbershop. But I think it would have been better had we said this story I heard from my granddad. He heard it from his granddad, and we sort of pass it on. Or like, hey, this story is a story that got people through something else. So like we're all stories in the end. I don't know. At the end of the day, this episode kept my attention, but I think it just kept going the whole time. I'm like, these concepts more interesting than the story I'm being presented. Oh, and some girl was left behind by the fugitive doctor, and it's never really addressed. Hey, the fugitive doctor fought Anansi. I'm sure Big Finish will do something with it. Uh, and again, the doctor just remembers it, but I already explained how I sort of rationalized that one. But again, like we just sort of it's as Russell said, like we want to let you know that she exists. You still hear this mythology. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. I don't. I just don't know. I just don't know. At the end of the day, this episode will probably be an episode I'll probably go back to once or twice. I like that it's self-contained. I like that it's trying to really let the performances carry the story. And for the most part, Belinda's story I felt was interesting. Um, I like the payoff. Mrs. Flood was there. I think she's been in every episode so far. This episode might be the most boring, or at least the one that sort of leaves me less interested because I'm more invested in the idea of it. Like the whole episode with Lucky Day was really sold me on Millie Gibson just being able to perform again. We were in Unit. That raised more questions about Unit. Um, this episode feels like such a out there story because we didn't really progress the overall plot other than the fact, hey, Mrs. Flood's here. Or Miss Flood's here. Mrs. Flood. I don't know. And then we had, oh gee, why can I not remember the episode that happened just before this? Oh yeah, The Well, Midnight, which at least carried the story. And then we had, uh, was it Lux? I think it was Lux. Yeah, and Lux, which was also furthering a story. And then we had, well, Robot Revolution, which started the story in the worst way possible. This one here feels like we did just sort of stop the story because we were really in love with the idea. Russell was in love with the play of the person who wrote this episode. I'm like, okay. So Russell, you cut the episode count and decided, well, someone cut the episode count, and so you decided to do a passion project. Fine, fine, but that means these next couple episodes need to be 100%. I don't know. Maybe I'm complaining. Maybe I am. This is an unfocused review for the most part. So at the end of the day, this episode exists. There's some really cool ideas that maybe upon further viewing we'll see the brilliance of it. I'll appreciate the brilliance of it. But the problem is I'm expecting a story from Russell, a grand epic story. And this is sort of like we stopped it. I don't know. Oddly enough, I felt like this is what I wanted the Whittaker era to be, but without the TARDIS. But we'll get to that another time. So anyway, with that in mind, what do you guys think of the story and the engine? Did you like it? Did you hate it? I don't think anyone could hate this episode, but I can see a lot of people not loving the episode. It's like we sort of slow the episode down, especially after Lucky Day, which didn't really progress. Again, didn't really progress much. So who knows? Who knows? I'll leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'll catch you all later. This is Book of Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.